line in the book. It's a Russian expression, but I put it in my Ukrainian phrase, and everybody is happy. People from Georgia, when they use vulgar words, because they're very religious, usually they use Russian words. You know, and everything is okay.
Right. You also?
By the way, we are buying just Happy Meal in McDonald's. But I guess so not everybody knows what does it mean.
This is true. And that's interesting too, to think that like what we buy, we may not know the meaning. And what does that mean? But what about English influence? Yeah.
Well, I don't know about like people on the street. Well, if they both know English, like for example, me and my friend, even though she's not teaching English, she just knows it. We might like when you teach English, you sometimes begin not like say think English would be like too loud to say something like this. But sometimes English words come into my mind more often, like more quickly than the Russian equivalent, and I might just say it and she understands me, and like something like this might happen. And in the office, like office workers, sometimes they use English words because it's just like it's what they are speaking about is an English thing, and it's sometimes not yet implemented in Ukraine in general, or just there is no new word made for this. Like I don't know what I'm speaking about, but feedback, for example, the word feedback, there is like a translation of the word feedback, but feedback is like feedback. It's not обратная связь, which is boring and like I don't know. So people use stuff like this just to make their language more, I don't know, lively and modern.
Phrases without translation, like dress code or code dress.
Yeah.
Nobody translates for Russian how I should be dressed, but in our company we have code dress. Everybody understands.
That's interesting. We know also IT, right? A lot of the language of IT is English, regardless, and you do if you're working in it, you understand it. For sure. Sciences, some of the newer sciences also have it.
For example, the letters HR, and like everyone uses HR, and some people add the suffix, like a Russian suffix for like ER, so HRR, so a person who does HR, but the Russian suffix to this HR thing, and they don't know what HR is. They just say HR, it's somebody who works with like people and so on, but it's not, nobody knows that it's human resource. Not nobody, but not everybody knows that it's human resources actually and what it means and so on.
That is fascinating. I love it. So those are perfect examples of what she's talking about, how English is kind of being used in different ways than we're expecting. And what does that mean for the English language classroom? So some of the things that she was talking about is we have begun questioning, according to Kern, which is obviously current research, we are questioning the authenticity of the native speaker. And remember, this is not all native speakers, it's just where the people who decide what is standard English, where they're coming from. That's what's being questioned. Like, why we are all buying into the idea of the native speaker. Because if you didn't buy into the idea of the native speaker and the standardization of English, there would be no standard, right? You would say, I don't agree with that. I think that it should be this way, or it should be expressed in this way. And you would not teach your students in the way that is expected by whoever created the standard. Does that make sense? Okay, so they're talking about how do we teach students about hybridity and how do we teach them with hybridity in the classroom? Where is the placement for that? Because it is common, it is being used. As you were mentioning earlier, like sometimes the words just pop out. And it's not like you're thinking really hard, oh, I want to use English, I'm going to show off or something. It's just the best way that you have to express what you needed to express in that particular moment of time. So what does that mean for us as teachers? So what do we do in the classroom about this? This is her general inquiry. And some of the changes that she sees is that, and this is not necessarily, there was no real answer for what do we do in the classroom. As I mentioned at the beginning of this workshop, AAAL, these questions that are posed are questions we'll see the answer to in 3, 5, 10 years. But they're not necessarily, we're not going to have the answers right away. But they're the things we should be thinking about. So language has become an added value, where what we mean by added value is people put it on their resume just to have it on the resume, but not necessarily because they wanted to communicate using the language. That's not really what they're interested in. They want whoever they're going to get a job with to see, oh, they speak English, they speak Spanish, they speak German, great, let's hire them. So it looks good, basically, to say that you have it. The other trend that researchers are noticing is communication is about sharing the value of communication, not communication of shared value. So we see this happening on Facebook. So we value communication on Facebook, but it's not really communication. It's the same with blogs. You put all your thoughts, all your ideas, every moment of your life, but you're not really communicating because you're not engaging in a discussion about what these ideas are. It's just like, I had this thought. And you communicate that just to communicate. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So she's one of the ideas that she was coming at. So how do we engage students who are not communicating to communicate? Because the whole point of language is the exchange of shared ideas or values or whatever. So how do we work with a generation that's not interested in that? And then another side value is there a way to train the generation that's growing up not interested in that to communicate shared values through language? So what is the teacher's role? How can the teacher, through their own personal experiences, share with the students in a way that engages them to want to learn more about communicating for the purpose of sharing values? So an example that she gave for that was some of the struggles that she had with languages and some of the amazing opportunities and experiences that she wished she could communicate to her students because they really transformed her ability to learn language, but there really wasn't a space in the classroom for her to do that unless somebody asked a question. But these are not the kinds of questions that most students feel comfortable to ask and that most teachers feel willing to talk about. You know, tell me about your personal experience learning language. What? Turn to page 5. You know, like that's not gonna fly really. So these were some of the ideas that she was discussing. How do we make these changes? So our codes, our norms, our conventions, they're being destabilized right now. They are destabilized. So what is it that we're supposed to teach? How is it that we're supposed to approach students at this time? Oh, it was like mind-blowing, this workshop. This plenary that she gave. It was just so good. I wish I'm not doing a great job communicating. I'm sure I'm missing bits and pieces of it. But I really recommend some of the resources, going through and reading some of them about these topics because it was really fascinating, these questions.